I just keep thinking of him.
I think so, yeah. We don't...
Well, there's so much like level quality.
Yeah, we didn't even get finished setting it up.
This show's amazing.
Right?
It hurt my heart to miss the rewind last week. It's become such a routine that I was like, oh no, what's going on? But I was at LegionsCon, so it was okay, because that was amazing. We'll talk about that more later. But that also means that my eyes are heavy, my voice is cracking, still after a week. But there's toys to talk about. And we must always talk about the toys! I'm Robo. This is the Rewind. Easing into some toy news, LooseCollector has announced that he will be debuting a new Blankz line that is exactly what you think. It's blank base bodies. With the tagline, by customizers for customizers, it's exactly that. They're meant to be painted on. They're meant to be sculpted on. They're meant to be slathered in soft goods. We're seeing quite a bit of that these days from import companies, from domestic companies. I've got a box of the Boss Fight Studios Epic Blankz in there that I need to look at, get into a play day. Ooh, play day. When it comes to this kind of thing, the more the merrier, because for people like me who don't sculpt, but would like different bodies throughout the shelf, among the characters, this is great. You have this company, and this company, and this company, and this company, all doing bodies that are slightly different in sculpt, in texture, in size, in shape. Bring it on. Moving over to McFarlane Toys, they revealed a new wave of their DC Direct page punchers, and looking at these, I'm realizing there's another layer of confusion. Or at least complication. These are under the DC Direct banner, but they are obviously DC Multiverse styled. We've talked about that at length several times. Every time this pops up, it's like, why isn't it just DC Multiverse? It's the same sculpts. Hell, it's reusing parts from the Multiverse line. But, Todd gonna Todd. Here, there's also the fact that page punchers can be 7-inch scaled, or that smaller line that's way less articulated is that 2-inch, 1.5, 3-inch something. I don't pay attention once it gets shorter than 6 because... But there's also a third layer here, which we'll get to in a minute because I can't mess up the segue that I've got set up. It's so good. Mwah. First, there is Superman 78 comic. You may recognize most of this because it reuses a lot of parts from the Superman 78 movie figure, just with a comic style paint job on top of it. And I ain't gonna lie, I like this better. And that's not just me like, oh, it's the newest, it's the greatest, I must have it. Although, it's not a bad thing talking yourself out of pre-orders or wanting more and more toys. In fact, it's pretty healthy, I guess. But there is a method to my madness here. As far as Multiverse goes, movie likenesses are not the greatest. Don't get me wrong, there's been good ones, there's been some okay ones, there's been some bad ones. I'm not saying that the Christopher Reeve likeness is bad. It's okay on the movie figure, but here it's through another filter. It's through comic books, so my brain's not, oh, it's gotta look exactly like the movie version. There's some leeway, and that's exactly what this figure gives it. And on top of that, I kinda really like the comic shading. Basically, the accuracy isn't as much of a factor because it's a 3D representation of a 2D medium that is emulating another 2D medium that wouldn't be possible without a 3D model. Or a human. Did I overcomplicate that? I'm also happy they fixed the paint job from the initial promo pictures because again, I was at a convention, I wasn't seeing a lot, but what I did, it was like, oh, okay, That picture's weird. Why does the shading come up to the cut line and then disappear? But on the final promo pictures, they fixed, and here's the pecs and everything else. And looking at those, I do think they swapped the upper torso from the movie figure. And I think the arms. The elbows, the joint there is bigger, and then it's missing the cuff. Still very 78 style, but buffed up slightly. Two nitpicks though. My eyes go directly to the missing yellow triangle on the upper corner of the S shield. It's not a full S without that thing right there. Plus there's a balance to be had. There's yellow over here. Need more yellow over here. And then the sculpt of the boots is completely ignored with those two big black heavy lines not following any grooves. Still, I like the overall look for what it is. What it's meant to be. For Shazam, it's kind of the same situation. It's a comic book style brought into action figure form, just without all that heavy shading. And yes, I'm looking directly at the face. They have that classic look to it, but there's a dot of white just to give some realism. Well, okay, as much realism as you know what I mean, but that extra detail makes it pop. Otherwise, it's just an overall clean sculpt. But then there's Batman The Adventure Continues Red Hood. This is clearly animated style, but we've seen that in the 7-inch scale DC Multiverse line before. In fact, I saw some the other day that kind of, oh wait, where'd those come from? But on top of that, it's been a staple in that line since the beginning. Wasn't one of the first figures we got an animated style Batman of some kind? But this is also DC Direct, where McFarlane's been reissuing and adding to that collection the smaller scaled animated style figures. And that's where this falls, which I did not notice until I looked at the boxed shots. It's the larger Page Puncher's packaging, but then you look at the figure and it's whoop down in there. Whereas Superman and Shazam are wool, so that means it will not fit into the next wave of McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse, the new Batman adventures. Like I said, we see animated style every now and then, going all the way back to the first, and I guess they're getting more hot and heavy with it. Like I said, I saw some at Walmart the other day, kind of caught me off guard because I don't keep track of the animated style stuff, but hey, when they start showing promo pictures, I kind of like my Batman in blue and gray. But since I don't follow that kind of thing, I don't know if this is reuse. I'm pretty sure it is, but I'm not going to make a definitive statement because it always comes back and bites me in the ass. Here's a Batman. I have nothing against a skin-tight suit on Riddler. In fact, sometimes I prefer it, but I don't really like this look. There's something to it. Well, again, I'm not really connected to the animated series of the 90s, so there is that. But man, if I were to buy one figure out of this wave, it would be Scarecrow. Because look at that. It's got that perfect mix of creepy and cartoony. Oh, yeah. Wait a second. No, yes, yeah. Look, no. Something you can pre-order right now is the McFarlane Toys DC Multiverse Gold Label Walmart/McFarlane Toys store exclusive Blue Beetle Black and White Accent Edition. I did it. I didn't have to look down and read. Did I get it right? How many colors did I just say? Gold, blue, black, white. But that pretty much sums it up. As much as I make fun of the word salad titles when it comes to McFarlane Toys, they are pretty much on the nose. If you just read it, you'd be like, okay, I can picture that. It's McFarlane Toys! Check. DC Multiverse defines it as 7-inch and articulated. Check. It's gold label. That means it's exclusive. So, Walmart, McFarlane Toys store, online. Check. It's Blue Beetle without a lick of blue on them, so that is a little misleading. But if they had went with blue for the accent color, it would have just been Blue Beetle. With grayscale goggles and belt buckle. But even in this color scheme, it is still unmistakably Ted. Check. I missed, didn't I? Black and white is the grayscale color scheme, and then the accent is yellow. Check. I've said it many times before. I like this concept. I like looking at them. They're interesting, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to buy any because they're not for me. But the key word there is me. Other people like it. They sell, they keep making them, so there you go. Seems as good a time as any to jump over to Marvel because Hasbro did solicit a couple of new Marvel Legends, starting with Dark Avengers Captain Marvel. Yeah, I said Marvel 3 times in the same sentence. Now, we had already seen this revealed, but with solicitations come great promotional images, and that gives us an idea of what we're getting. Like confirming that this is indeed the Jean Grey Phoenix body, but all the other parts are from Warbird, and that means no classic Carol head. I know it wouldn't have been 100% perfectly accurate, but it would have been cool. I still like this though, even though I don't have a lot of love for Dark Avengers, except for wanting a new Daken. For whatever reason. We need a new Daken. This week also gave us the Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse The Spot, or the final version of The Spot from the movie. I'm assuming, or at least that's what I read, because I still haven't seen this movie. Stop typing! Stop typing! Having not seen the movie, my biggest problem with the first Spot figure was the shape. I was like, man, I really want a classic comic book version, but this, I'm warming up to this because it strays away from my mental image of the character. It's still the Spot, but it's in a crazy color scheme. It's its own thing. So the overall shape of the figure doesn't bother me near as much. Plus that Spidey Spot piece is awesome, and since I didn't get the first figure, I can get this and have that. See how that works? I waited. I was patient. Several things before moving on. First, yes, I know I still need to watch Across the Spider-Verse. I've heard it's awesome. It looks awesome. It just keeps slipping through the cracks for whatever reason. Two, yes, I know that I can just take a 5-pack Zero and paint some circles on them. Ta-da! Comic book Spot. Still, I want official release. Three, was there a number 3? Nope! We're moving on to the Bandai SH Figuarts Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Spider-Man Noir, and Spider-Ham. This is just a little teaser, a little taste of what's coming in their Spider-Verse line. And man, now that I think about it, I don't have an import Noir. Hell, I don't think I've opened up my Marvel Legends Noir. But here we go again with another statuesque Peter Porker, which I get, it's tiny, the limbs are so thin, they're just toothpicks, you put joints in them, they're gonna break, all kinds of QC issues, and that's just bad for the company. I guess if you collect enough of these and have several different Spider-Hams in several different poses, it's kind of like being articulated, right? Because you have options for display. Like, oh, I want them in this pose. Whoop. No. The point is Bandai is continuing on with their Spider-Verse line, slowly building up the ranks, building up that display, building up that shelf, and that's cool. It's nice to see them keep doing, well, I guess they're building up to the next movie too, but sometimes Bandai just kind of drops off, you know what I mean? Hey, they didn't complete this crew. That doesn't seem to be the case here. We're going to be flipping back and forth rapid fire style because Bandai was all over the place. Maybe there was a show or an event, some reason for them to throw out a bunch of teaser pictures. Because another one of those was well, I guess it's a continuation of the SH Figuarts Harry Potter line. I nearly forgot that they had done the kids as youngins, and then Snape? Was it just those 4? Now they're jumping ahead to Goblet of Fire Harry. Older, which means, are we going to get an older Ron and Hermione at some point? That'll be after Voldemort, though, who seems like a no-brainer for any action figure line. It's a guy in dynamic robes missing a nose. I know me describing it isn't really exciting, but look, it's Voldemort. Now, I like the movies. I don't know how much I need Harry Potter figures, but the most tempting thing here is to see what Voldy is rocking under those robes. You see his head, you see his hands, you see his feet, you see soft goods. You know there's something under there. Did they put him in a suit? Is it just a blank body? Is there musculature? Flipping back to Harry though and zooming in, the glasses are sculpted directly to the face. And I mean directly. There's no, like the glasses are sitting on his face. It's on his face. They curve to the sockets and everything. So that is kind of weird. It looks off really super up close like this, but nobody looks at it like this. On the shelf further away, yeah, it doesn't look near as bad. In fact, it took me a while to notice it until I thought, wait a second, how'd they do those glasses? But weird seems to be the theme because they also announced a Lord of the Rings line. And at first it's like, oh shit, yeah, Lord of the Rings, heck yeah, give me. But the more I look at these, the more they seem weird, off. And here we have actual promotional images because pre-orders go live next week. So we get the full deal here. And again, the more I look, the more I think, man, Aragorn has one of those faces, doesn't he? Has anybody, other than Hot Toys, sit down? Sit down. Or are they the main protagonists in very, very popular movies? To the point where we watch them over and over and their fine details get ingrained in our membranes more than other characters in the movies. So when we see plastic representations of those or even artwork, our minds just pick out every single little pore and shape and curve and everything. So, oh, it looks off. I guess you could say the same thing about Frodo too. Like I said about Harry, at a distance they both look great, but the closer you get, the more off it seems. And I don't think it's just the sculpt either. I think it's how clean they are. We've ran into this with SH Figuarts Star Wars 2. It was a character who's grimy, grungy, dirty, and I just don't see that here. It's just the base plastic colors and that sheen to them. So that's throwing me off. Because to finish off the solicitations, there's also a Golem that comes with Frodo to kind of balance out that price point, but it's not articulated. It's got swivel shoulders and then a ball joint at the neck, I think. But again, on top of all of that, a clean Golem just looks weird. They also teased Legolas for down the line. And again, well, I get that he's supposed to be a little cleaner. Just because of the character, but again, man, this makes me long for at least some Mr. Hobby, Mr. Super Clear matte to spray on all these, to knock down that shine, to knock down that toyness, that plasticiness. I'm not saying these are bad. Sit down, sit down. I'm just saying they look off. The same way I say Jango and Boba Fett look off. But since we're in the realm of SH Figuarts Star Wars, why not talk about A New Hope Obi-Wan Kenobi Classic? I guess that's what they're calling their rehashes. Their re-releases of older figures with some improvements. Classic. This is a reissue of Old Ben with some tweaks. The first release had a plastic robe and a swap-on hood that really just did not work. I get that some people prefer plastic, but man, it was like a fishbowl on just... Here the arms have been retooled completely to be the lighter tan underrobes because they've added a soft goods outer robe. That allows for way more posing options. In fact, this picture right here sells me on it. I mean, that is just majestic. But that also leaves this option, which is just leaner and meaner. That looks good. For the rest, it's pretty much the same. There's the two heads that may have better photo paint printing on it, a little less pixely maybe, or maybe I'm just hoping for that. Same lightsaber options, although they did add the swinging blade that they've been doing a lot lately. But then it doesn't come with the plastic robes crumpled on the floor beside the bed because now there's a cloth robe. You can just take that off, stomp it flat, same effect. To really fine-tooth comb it, the belt buckle is now brassy colored instead of the silver of the first release. I think that's it. Probably not, but that's all I got. As for the next SH Figuarts Star Wars Classic re-release, reissue, rehash, it's going to be Revenge of the Sith Obi-Wan Kenobi. The obvious difference is the addition of the soft goods robes, because they have the pattern. They're going to get their money's worth out of it. The rest looks the same, as far as I can tell. We won't know more until we see more promotional images. The face does seem to have better paint to it, but again, that may be just me projecting, me hoping. Backflipping up and over to Hasbro again, they had a couple of new Star Wars Black Series Gaming Greats Amazon exclusive 2-packs this week. I'm of two minds here. I absolutely love Army Builder packs. They should be pumping out the troopers and the droids. But then I don't care about the commandos at all. And it's not because they're not as buff as Republic commandos, it's just that I don't really have any attachment to them. They are okay, I guess. I'm digging the battle droid though, even though it's just a training droid. It has targets at its weak points. I think that's neat. I don't remember that from Battlefront 2, but there's also something to be said about a couple of figures in Bright White. I don't think that's enough to sell it for me, though. I'm kind of more interested in the Jedi Survivor, Dagon Gera, and BX Droid 2-pack. And it's not because I'm more into Jedi Survivor. I don't know who this character is. It's the blue arm, which I didn't know was a thing until after I talked about the first release of this figure. Before this, Hasbro solicited a single card release of this character with no arm. And I thought, okay, cool, a one-armed Jedi. It must be something in the game. And then the comment section was like, no, it should come with a blue Force arm. So they did that in a 2-pack. I see you, Hasbro. Or maybe Lucasfilm. I see you. And I think that's the only difference for that figure. It just has the blue arm. But that is pretty damn neat. And the gold and the red on the droid is... that pops. I like the look of that. But then again, they continue to keep the prices of the multi-packs cheaper than the single releases. Both of these are $44.99. And that does soften the blow a bit. So, yeah. I see you, Hasbro. Let's end it with some Four Horsemen action. And not because I'm whole hog into Mythic Legions or Cosmic Legions. It's because I was immersed in that world for 4 days straight. That tends to linger in your brain pan. You have that much fun in that short a time, and it's going to stick with you. Oh, don't think I'm deep diving into the lore and all that kind of stuff, because I'm still Robo. I have a reputation to uphold. I still don't know stuff, but man, I know a lot more than I did. Going out of order from the actual reveals, they announced Infinite Legions. From what I understand, this is going to be collaborations with other companies, kind of bringing those characters into the Mythic Legions aesthetic. The Four Horsemen interpretations. I don't know much about Glyos, but this will be the first release. And from what people showed me of Glyos, this looks like a Mythic Legions Glyos figure. To me, it's kind of a chunky robot, and I like that kind of thing. They also announced Legacies of Mythos, which is redos of older, hard-to-find characters like Otho. This is a thing with popular characters. I don't keep track of any kind of secondary market process or anything, but apparently it's hard to get. So coming back around to those is a good thing for new collectors, which seems to be a running theme the past couple of weeks when it comes to Four Horsemen. They're making it very accessible to new collectors. This gets a newer version of an old character into newer collectors' hands, and that's along with introducing 2.0 and 3.0 bodies. So if articulation was your holdup, this is the time to jump in. Because between all that and then revealing Mythic Legion's Reign of the Beasts, man, if you stare at these too long, your eyeballs will explode because there's just so much to look at. I mentioned upgrades to the bodies. I reviewed the skeleton and the knight a couple of months back, and there is more range of motion in some of the joints. But here, we're seeing double elbows. We're seeing butterfly joints. We're seeing mid-torso articulation. And again, if that's what you've been waiting for, it's here. It's time to jump in. It's time to do your thing. Because look at the golden pride of Leondor. Yeah, I'm gonna make an attempt at saying the names. Look out. Human type, armored up, badass kitty cat helmet, all the articulation. Holy shit, this looks great, and this is arguably the tamest of the wave. So, yeah, that's what you're getting into here. Wendaji the Cackler is also high on my list. Has the doubles. Has the butterflies, has the mid-torso joint, and just looks completely badass. You get the scavenger aspect from it, but also, you don't want to hear that laughing blowing in on the wind, because, wait, what? Oh no. As far as I know, the rest of the wave doesn't have those same joint enhancements, but they make up for it in bulk, and extras, and color palettes, like the snakes. Basilia is going to be absolutely eye-catching in a display. Seriously, they had the wave behind glass in the hallway, and every time I walked up to it, it went directly, right, just like, shoo, there's that. Then you start pouring over the sculpted details and all the paint hits and everything, and it's crazy. There's also the Serpent Spire Royal Guard, and to be honest, this one gives me the shivers. I live in Arkansas. I've spent some time in the woods, and I don't know how many times I've stumbled upon snakes and just have that, you have that reaction. Even though you're used to it, well, you can never get used to it. Something, I'm invading its territory and it doesn't like it. But that's what I get from this, that feeling. That almost fear. Genom is spiffy with that smoke plume that goes down to the magic lamp. Now apparently there's already a blue genie without that effect, with just the legs. And this also comes with those legs, but I'm assuming the blue is the good guy and the red is the bad guy? It just kind of looks like a bad guy. Leodicius? What can I say here? It's a big hunk of plastic goodness in the shape of an anthropomorphic lion. What is not to love? But this is the one I have to single out with the old pictures do not do it justice. Again, this was featured in a display in the hallway up top where you can get right up on the glass, fogging it up, see all the fine detail and everything. And looking at the promotional images, as good as 1/6 shooters pictures are, I swear, I am not trying to take a single solitary thing away from you, Trevor, because these are beautiful. But man, this is one of those you have to see it in person type situations. There is just so much going on. I did get a couple of close-up shots, and I hate to even put them in the same category as the official promotional images. To round out the wave, there is Araya the Talon Bearer. She's just as fantastic as the rest, but the reason I saved her for last is because of the pet dragon. Dragon was such a buzzword at the show that it almost became a joke in my head. Like every time somebody would say, are we gonna get a dragon? It was like, well, no, you're not. Like, they're not gonna do it now. Everyone is expecting it. Why do what everyone expects? Well, because you're a business and you want to make money and sell things and get cool things into people's hands. So there is that. But when this was revealed, it was like, here's dragon, haha. But that's not taken away from this dragon because it's awesome. I love the look of this. Out in the hallway, there were people like, oh, that's it? Is that the dragon that we've been building up to, that we've been getting hyped for? Wait a second, what's that at the top of the staff? Is that a big talon that she's bearing? Okay, I just caught that. Then it happened. They revealed Baethir the Green. There was no way to prepare for this. In fact, when they parted the banners and rolled this out, my mind wasn't really accepting. Well, okay, I was standing way back at the back of the room and I'm half blind, so it was kind of a green blob, but it didn't look huge, you know? I thought, okay, that's a pretty big dragon. Then they started going over the measurements and comparisons. In standard stance, 31 inches long, 22 inches high. Again, I was way back, so in my head, it's like measure, measure, measure. Okay, that's not too terrible. Stretched out, nose to tail, 54 inches. Again, in my head, measure, measure. Wait a second, that is 4.5 feet long. Then you add the accessory pack flame and the fire-breathing head and the fully extended wings, and that's 70 inches long. I'm 5'9". That's 69 inches. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Laying in bed beside this dragon, it would take up the same distance. They also threw this picture on the screen, which is a good gauge of how big it is to a lot of the room, but kind of lost on me. I only have variations on the two smallest figures, but even going by that, I was like, oh, okay. Okay. It was becoming more and more imposing in my mind, and then they put it in the display case where you could be right up on it. Again, okay, it's not huge. It's the length and then the wings, but otherwise it seems very manageable because of how narrow it is. You know what I mean? Like you could hold it and be like, yes, Mr. Bond. It also seems very displayable because if you have a lot of space, hey, dragon, spread out, make yourself comfortable. But if you don't have a lot of space, you have a smaller square footage of shelf display to use, then you can hunker them down. You can bring the tail around. You could use the less spread out wings or hang it up or put it in other places. It's, I was gonna say compact, but it's not compact, but you can compact the figure itself. Keep getting bigger. And do I even need to mention how jack of all trades this is? It's a super detailed, super articulated dragon. How many displays can that go in? My first thought was NECA Dungeons and Dragons, because it's right there in the name. That's how my brain works. Dragon? Throw a Masterverse Beastman on top of it. We just talked about the Bandai SH Figuarts Lord of the Rings figures. This could fit there. Or if you're not going in that direction, there's also the Diamond Select Lord of the Rings figures. That would still work at the larger scale. Hey, maybe your Funko Game of Thrones figures didn't crumble into dust. Dragon! Hell, I know several people that only collect dragons, and this is the dragon to get for something like that. So, yeah, so many options. No price point yet, but I have heard they're keeping it under $650. But then there's also a 500 number being thrown around. I'm not gonna say anything definitive until the crowdfund actually starts, which should be here in, did they say right after the first of the year? Somewhere in there. Should be soon. From what I understand, there's more variations to come. The 5 pillars, the different dragons. Can you imagine displaying 5 of these? And that's all I got for this week. Yes, I know I'm missing stuff. It's been hectic. I wanted to get out what I had in. And then we'll swing back around next week. As always, special thanks to the Patreon. I would not be able to do what I do without you. So, special thanks to the Nobots. Like I mentioned, LegionsCon was absolutely amazing. Seriously, it's hard to describe. I know I've said it several times, but you just have to experience it in person. My only previous experience with a hotel attached to the convention center was PowerCon, and I love that show. But LegionsCon is that cranked to 11. It has that same feel. You know, you're there all the time. The convention keeps on going. The floor may close at 5, but you're gonna keep talking toys and hanging out and doing those type of things into the wee hours of the night, because everyone's there. Everyone has the same purpose for being there, and it's a beautiful thing. There's no other way to put it. The lobby's full, the hallway's full, outside there's people all over the place, just sharing their love of action figures. And man, like I said, beautiful. I didn't lose my voice because of sickness or anything. I just talked constantly because there was that fear of going into a new fandom. Like, I always thought, why would I go to LegionsCon? I don't buy a lot of Four Horsemen stuff. I'm not into Mythic Legions or anything like that, but it's so much more than that. I mean, I've never been to a show where people get tables just to show their customs and not sell them, you know? It's just there for display. It's like a gallery, and there is so much talent packed into one room. It is mind-blowing. You can't even I didn't see everything. There is so much to look at. I spent one day doing a lot of talking and thing, but the second day I was trying to get around on the floor, and you can't do it. You cannot see everything. And everyone is so welcoming. During setup, it was like, hey, do you do this, that? Hey, can I put this over here? I saw Odious in several displays. Wade had a hell of a show. And then on the second day, when I was going around, there was an Odious in the Dio, or an Odious standing over with other figures. Just kept popping up all over the place. And it's the same between the customizers. It's impossible to describe. This is the short version. I am going to be live streaming with Veebs Sunday. We're probably going to be doing an after-hours show. Probably about 10 p.m. Central, if everything works out right. If not, it's going to be a little later, if I'm running late. He didn't go. I did. So it's essentially going to be me. Not that he's gonna need any arm twisting, but me trying to explain the experience and talk him into going next year. Because I'll be there. For sure. With bells on. And clothes. And bells. If you can, swing by. We'll be talking about that and probably other things. Probably some cereals. The usual. Because it's been a while. But until then,